You know those people who cry easily? Not loudly, not dramatically, just quietly. A movie scene hits them harder than expected. A song catches them at the wrong moment and their throat tightens. Someone says something kind unexpectedly and their eyes suddenly burn. And people always say the same thing. Why are you so sensitive? But here's the strange part. They're not weak, they're not unstable, and they're definitely not too emotional. If anything, they're protecting something. And psychology has a very different explanation for why this happens. If you're someone who cries easily, you're about to feel very seen. Because people usually misunderstand this completely. People call it being overly emotional. Psychology calls it something else. High emotional sensitivity. And that small difference changes the entire story. Psychologists often describe this trait as high sensitivity processing. It simply means your nervous system processes emotional signals more deeply than average. Not just your own emotions, other people's emotions too. And here's the part most people miss. Crying easily isn't the same as losing control. Sometimes it's your nervous system doing the opposite, releasing emotion before it builds up. But why does this happen in the first place? Let's break it down. First, your brain detects emotional meaning faster. Imagine two people watching the same moment. A character finally receives the apology they waited years for. A parent tells their child, "I'm proud of you." Or a friend says something deeply sincere. One person watches the moment and moves on, but the other person feels it instantly because their brain doesn't just register what happened, it registers what it means. The pause in the voice, the change in the expression, the emotional weight behind the words. When emotional meaning enters the brain faster, the body reacts faster too. Sometimes that reaction is tears, not because you're fragile, but because your brain processes emotional information at a higher resolution, like switching from standard definition to 4K. And this doesn't just happen with movies. You might notice tension in someone's voice, or a hint of sadness in someone's eyes, even when everyone else misses it. You're not overreacting. You're detecting emotional signals sooner, and that can make your emotional world feel stronger than other people's. Now here's the second reason. Your empathy system runs stronger. Your brain contains something called mirror neurons. These neurons activate when you observe someone else experiencing something. If someone smiles, your brain simulates the smile. If someone is in pain, your brain simulates the pain. For people who cry easily, this system tends to be more active, which means you don't just understand emotions, you absorb them. That's why you might tear up when someone else wins, or feel emotional watching someone reunite with someone they missed, or feel heavy after being around someone who's struggling, even if they never said a word. And the strange part is you might not even realize you absorbed it. You just think, why am I emotional today? But your nervous system has been quietly listening the whole time, noticing tension, sadness, stress people carry silently, and sometimes carrying a little of it too. Now the third reason. Crying acts like a pressure valve for your nervous system. Crying isn't just emotional, it's biological. When your body experiences stress, it releases hormones like cortisol. Crying helps regulate those stress chemicals. Think of it like a pressure valve. Some people release pressure through talking, some through anger, some through movement, and some through tears. That's why many people who cry easily stay calm during stressful moments and only cry afterward. During the crisis, they stay composed, but once the tension drops, their body finally releases the pressure, and the body says, okay, now we can let this go. And here's something surprising. Tears aren't always sadness. Sometimes they're relief. Sometimes they're meaning. Sometimes they're simply your nervous system completing an emotional cycle instead of storing that emotion inside. So why do people judge crying so harshly? Because crying is visible. Many emotions hide easily. Anxiety hides, resentment hides, numbness hides, but tears show up on your face, so people label them quickly. They call it weakness, but psychology often sees something very different. A nervous system that releases emotion instead of storing it. And storing emotions too long often turns into burnout, numbness, or quiet resentment. So in many ways, crying is emotional processing. And this is where the story changes, because people who cry easily often have something rare: higher empathy, deeper emotional awareness, a stronger connection to music, art, and storytelling, and a faster ability to understand what others are feeling. They notice emotional details others miss. They can read a room without a single word being spoken, and because of that, they often become the people others trust most. The friend people call late at night, the person who understands without needing long explanations. In a world that often avoids emotions, they understand them. And that's not weakness, that's emotional intelligence. But there is an important balance. There's a difference between feeling deeply and being overwhelmed by everything. One is awareness, the other is emotional overload. Healthy sensitivity means emotions move through you and eventually pass, but overload means emotions pile up and your system never gets time to recover. So the goal isn't to shut down your emotions, it's to protect your nervous system. Recovery, boundaries, quiet time, less emotional noise. Because sensitivity isn't the problem, lack of recovery is. If you cry easily, see if these sound familiar. You tear up when someone says they're proud of you. You cry during random movie scenes others barely react to. You feel emotional when someone is unexpectedly kind. You cry when you're angry because the feeling is too intense. You get emotional listening to music alone, or you feel other people's emotions almost as if they're your own. If that sounds familiar, your nervous system may simply process emotional information more deeply than average. And for many people, this has been true since childhood. So if you've ever been told you're too emotional, remember this: you're not broken. You're built for depth instead of numbness, for emotional clarity instead of emotional suppression. You don't feel too much. You feel more of what's actually there. But here's something fascinating. Some people cry easily, while others almost never cry at all. And in the next video, we're going to explore the psychology of people who rarely show emotion, why they seem so controlled, what their nervous system is doing underneath, and what that silence might really be protecting. If you want to understand that side of psychology, click the next video on the screen. And if this helped you understand yourself a little better, subscribe for more psychology explained like this.